I love all my supporters, fans, allies, fam, friends, everybody. Everybody that love God, I love forever. You know, and in this segment here, though, I wanted to speak a little bit about okay, the situation I've been speaking on all these years. It hasn't been, society hasn't been able to fully digest what's taking place in the spiritual realm, because of, this evil. Now, don't get me wrong. See, God is almighty, all powerful. God makes, he can use the bad things to be good, to turn out for good in the long run. God do that. He's done that. God is resilient. Anything happen, he can turn it and work it back around to where it still benefit those that love him and fear him, no matter what. Even death, God turn it around, like everything. Like, it's impossible for Satan to beat God, but Satan is delusional. It's impossible, for the devil to win against God. And ultimately, the Bible say what's going to happen, and it's what's going to happen. But as far as like in this dimension with my own personal life, they didn't really understand. Like some, they understand the magnitude to which what they sold. How truly tragic. How truly like apocalyptic. This campaign and things worked on me truly were, and what it meant for way more than just myself. They don't understand what it truly did, and how it truly sabotaged and crippled reality. Like, it's far outside of, myself, my contribution. It's a bigger thing. And it's a whole lot that, was a lot was lost, in the matter. And it's crazy because, like, it go to this extent of where the way it all work out is these were the end times anyway. So all of these things, God had made no mistake. It was meant to happen. But God, he offered a way for society or humanity to, like, circumnavigate, like, as far as any type of destruction, or society or anything like that. God had already created a way for that to be circumnavigated, like in these end times. But God already knew, just like God knew things before it happened. He already knew that the inclination of the flesh was towards evil. So he knew certain decisions society would make, generally. He knew decisions society would make generally. He knew what society would allow from how the hearts of men is, from like previous histories and things. So God already knew, like what society, he knew in advance the decisions that society was likely to make, at certain times when it was vital. And so they did, society did. And so it brought us to all the results that we got now, as far as like as an economy, as a society, as a people, our spiritual state, as far as like our moral compass generally, the things that's acceptable in society, as far as the sinful in God's eyes, that's still good to do, so it's just a elaborate situation. And it's obvious, just like me personally, I've been making these recordings, writing poetry and everything, for years. I've been on the attack for years, even before I started, talking about the attacks and describing in detail the attack I've been on and everything. So I've been doing all that for years. It ain't until like now, recent times, that I get all kind of like illegal, compounded, it's compound on top of all the other illegal stuff, proven, war crime, hate crimes, against the individual, for no substantial reason. That's also viral, and it fully, thoroughly broke down and exposed, and that's think of how crazy this is, like it's widespread, it's, if anyone can backtrack and see, what the facts at, like, it's not opinion, it's reality, that's a thing, that's real. I've been talking about God, talking about the light, then I started talking about my experience, my testimony for Christ. I've been seeing all this for years, I made it very, very, accessible to anybody anybody that, that, had a heart. Anybody that had a heart, of those times all the way up to now. And it's weird because now I got more pressure like on my life, I feel. Because, at the end of the day, I'm an artist. I ain't never, say that I'm, if anything, any power, strength, or anything that came from me came directly from God. It's up God. It ain't something that I generated it myself. Like I didn't. Aside from God, I have nothing, no power, anything. So I just, it's crazy to think, that even after all of that, situation still remain that, is that I have a degree of antagonism on me in spite of my other exposure and, breakdown of it and everything. Like, but that in itself was also a part of God's glorious plan, So, I mean, I can't, it's reality, it's what I know to be reality. So, a whole lot of things that could have been didn't go, and it didn't. While it didn't stop or interfere with God's purposes, it particularly unfun for me, unhappy, for me personally. But God don't really care much about comfort, because you rest in heaven. Those that make it, after running the race of faith. But now it's like on the earth, it's just like work for all born again believers. It's just on the earth, you just. You got to save souls and, spread the good news of the gospel. Ain't nobody got to go to hell because Christ died on the cross. So that's the great news, because hell is a million times worse than whatever anyone can imagine, because it's spiritual. Our minds are finite. So nobody can fully grasp it. They got ideas of and depictions of what it could possibly be like, but it doesn't fully encapsulate the magnitude of how terrible it is. So it's like, and it forever. In there, it ain't no getting out. So it's like, to the good news to hear that all people, that's God's punishment, for sin. Even the slightest sin worthy of death in God's eyes, because that's not what he created man for. So with sin being viewed by God in such an extreme extent, like it's punishable by death and hell, no matter what. That's what it was, but God, he's a God, so he desired sacrifice. In the beginning, before his son came, he had people sacrifice animals for their sin. Then after the sacrifice of his son, all they have to do is believe it, and then they be saved. Believe it, and then they sacrifice themselves daily, to the flesh or desires of the flesh. So all of it, like in perfect connectivity, man, it's awesome. Like anybody can see the light and how it makes perfect sense, and it always is just, God's word is perfect. That's the only perfect thing, like, and it's awesome. Like anybody just want to, like anybody who understand how discernment to see the light, appropriately. Then it's like you can't never stop praising God, and worshiping God, because you realize that it's bigger than the flesh. Anything in the flesh don't really matter, because the other side is where somebody go be forever, like, to one or two places, So once you there, eternity seal you, like you there. Some people get more than one chance, but most don't, So why things, ain't really go like it would have been perfect to have went. They could have. It was a possibility. And see, me knowing the extent of what I already been through, then just to understand that, or just to like sit there and ponder the thought that, okay, it was actually a possibility at one point in time that I could have been this happy. That I could have been that happy. That I could have saw that joy or that level of peace, harmony, unity. Just knowing that was a possibility is where I got solace and tranquility from. And some might not understand that, but until they been through that level of pain, or like, I don't know, It's just, to me, that's peace, than knowing that it could have possibly been an option, but it was events that wasn't, that I didn't personally cause or didn't personally do, and God assures me of it. Then I'm fine with it. Like if reality was destroyed due to something that I personally didn't bring on myself, then I can rest in peace, because then I understand that there was possible, there at one point was an option for things to have played out like that, and it could have been, but it didn't, and it wasn't because of me, and I could rest in peace knowing that. That's officially, and that's confirmed. So a lot of things and a lot of people, it's a whole lot that was lost. As far as like, in terms of programming, connectivity, like things that could have been used to create greater things for the progression of the light, that was sabotaged before that point ever was. Okay, so I mean, that's horrible. That's a horrible loss, and it's terrible to me personally, because my will is to do the will of the Father, and God is for all things to glorify Him and promote the light and progress the light, which is my desire, my same desire. So it's like, that's why it hurts me, but because I know what I'm capable of, or what I was capable of for God. So, I mean, in what I do, as an artist, I mean, so there's hope still, and it's called eternity. For anybody that repent, get right then. And that's another thing. Like, I'm actually kind of like glad things didn't go, because it showed more attention on the Father, even though at the time, let's say if things would have played out and everything would have been in harmony like it could have been, then I would have still been, worshiping God anyway. So it's like, it take me out the equation, which is fine too, because it's fine this way too, because then it's showing the bare essentials, which is the Father, the fruits of the Spirit, and eternity, like the things that God, the holy eternal scriptures. So that's fine. That's perfect, because that's what I was going to be showing anyway, had things did play out the way it could have. So, it's really, it just has to be understood. It ain't a mystery, it ain't a mystery. These things happen for this particular reason, for this particular result that you see, So it was intentional, and it was on purpose. And it was the devil to sabotage God. But once again, God reigns supreme. And ultimately, in the end, God will reign supreme. No matter what, God himself will be victorious. God is already victorious. The devil just good at distorting, But in the end, no matter what, no matter if God called his vessels home, if, who alive or who not, God himself go win. Victorious and conquer over evil, darkness, and the kingdom of hell. And that's for real, eternally.